You know, The Avengers, it's more than just a movie title, isn't it? It feels like a whole thing, like a moment in time. And this stack of stuff you've got here, reviews, articles, behind the scenes stuff, it's clearly got you thinking about this movie. What is it that really grabbed you about The Avengers? What questions are on your mind about how this superhero team up became such a phenomenon?
I think it's that The Avengers wasn't just a hit. It really did redefine what a blockbuster could be. This was 2012. Nobody, no studio had ever tried to cross over this big, pulling in all these characters from different films. Talk about a risk for Marvel.
And the praise. This review from the Critical Movie Critics is over the moon. They loved the action, which, sure, you expect. But they also point out how clever the writing is, especially all the funny stuff with Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man. Honestly, with a cast that big, how do you even start to find a director who can handle all of that?
And that's where things get interesting. They went with Joss Whedon, who, let's face it, you knew him from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Not exactly the typical action movie background. But when you think about it, Whedon is amazing at handling these big casts with lots of different personalities. He could do the funny stuff, the heart, the emotional beats. I mean, what more could you want for a team of superheroes?
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. But there's this point in this Collider article that I hadn't thought about. They compare the Avengers with Transformers. Dark of the Moon, which was also, a huge action film, same year. Both of them were these visual spectacles, tons of special effects. But the Avengers still feels kind of fresh, even all these years later, whereas Transformers kind of fades. What do you think the difference is?
It's the difference between a movie that's just a spectacle and a movie that actually tells you a story.
Hmm.
Whedon understood that people connect with characters, not just stuff blowing up. The action scenes are great, don't get me wrong, but we remember how these heroes make us feel. Their relationships with each other, their struggles, even small moments. Like, remember that scene with them eating shawarma after the big battle? All those little details, that's what sticks with you.
Oh man, that shawarma scene, it goes by so fast if you aren't paying attention. But this Medium article says that it actually caused like a worldwide increase in shawarma sales. That's crazy. Can you imagine a single scene in a movie having that kind of impact?
I know, it's wild. And it's funny, but that scene tells you everything you need to know about how Whedon approaches these characters. You've got these godlike beings, right?
Yeah.
They just saved the planet, and they're sitting there quietly eating shawarma. It reminds us that they're human. It's a grounding moment after all that chaos.
Speaking of chaos, this script analysis from Studio Binder really surprised me. I went into it thinking it would focus on all the action sequences, but it spends a ton of time on all the scenes with dialogue, scenes where they're just talking to each other. I wouldn't have thought that those quieter moments were so important to why the movie works. What do you make of that? Like all that back and forth on the helicarrier? They're not exactly saving the world in those moments. It's more like these huge personalities all crammed together, trying to figure out how to, well, not bump into each other.
It's those conversations, those everyday interactions that Whedon uses to set the stage for the big action to come. He's establishing how the characters relate to each other, dropping hints about future conflicts, and he's actually revealing some crucial plot points, all without sacrificing the audience's attention. It's brilliant.
So it's not just talking for the sake of talking. It's like their words actually have weight later on when the action does kick in.
Exactly. A perfect example is that scene in the lab, where all the Avengers are together for the first time. On the surface, it looks like they're just arguing, but listen to what they're actually saying, to how they're saying it. Whedon is subtly revealing so much in that scene. Their personalities, their motivations, even the tension that's simmering beneath the surface. It's such a masterclass in character development.
Now that you mention it, even when they're disagreeing, there are those little moments of humor. It's like these glimpses of their humanity that make them feel real.
Exactly. It's what makes the Avengers so unique. You've got this perfect blend of humor, those heartfelt moments, and of course the action. It's a superhero movie that never loses sight of the fact that these are people, even with all the crazy special effects.
And speaking of special effects, that final battle scene, in New York, pure adrenaline. But even with all the explosions, all the fighting, it never loses that emotional core.
Right. And that's where all those dialogue-heavy scenes earlier in the film really pay off. We understand what's at stake, not just for, the planet, but for these characters as people, as individuals.
This Medium article calls it this pulse-pounding battle to protect Earth, but they also talk about this theme of unity, which I thought was interesting. It's not just about one hero saving the day, it's about all of them coming together, right?
Yeah. And that's really what resonates with people, I think. The idea that these heroes, each with their own quirks and flaws, they have to put all that aside and work together.
Yeah, it's powerful, especially in a world that feels, well, pretty divided these days. But there's this one moment that really caught me off guard. I mean, maybe it shocked some people. And that's when Agent Coulson, he's killed. Like, it was such a punch to the gut. I mean, we knew going into this that the stakes were high, but it just really got me. We knew things were serious, but losing someone we actually knew, even cared about, it made the danger feel, like, real. It wasn't just a movie anymore.
I think that's such a good point. It was hard to watch, for sure, but Coulson's death, it had to happen for this story. It forced the Avengers to finally stop acting like a bunch of individuals and really see the threat. Don't you remember what Nick Fury says? Until now, you've been operating as individuals. This puts you all on the same team. It's tragic, but it shows how much is at risk and really makes them want to take down Loki.
Like, they needed something truly awful to happen, to snap them out of their own stuff and realize they were stronger as a team, which, kind of makes you think. It's not just about superheroes, right? We can do amazing things when we put aside our differences and work together.
Absolutely. The Avengers, it's a film. It's this huge cultural thing, and it speaks to this deep need we have to connect and work together. This idea of unity, finding strength in the things that make us different, working towards a shared goal that's powerful stuff.
It really has been a trip to break down this movie like this. We've talked about everything from what fans think to all this critical analysis, script stuff, even how a shawarma scene can change the world. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Avengers, what's the biggest takeaway for you?
For me, it's remembering that the Avengers wasn't just about these heroes saving the day. It was the same thing behind the scenes. All those writers, the director, the actors, those incredible effects people, so many people came together on this project. And they took their talents, their individual points of view, and they made something amazing because they worked together.
Now that's something to think about. If that kind of energy can make a movie as big as The Avengers, imagine what we could do if we brought that same spirit to the real world, to the things we need to fix, the challenges we face.
Exactly. It shows what we can do when we decide to work together. It's a message of hope, a call to action, a reminder that we're capable of extraordinary things on screen and off when we collaborate.